They say that the United States has had its day in the sun, that our nation has passed its zenith. They expect you to tell your children that the American people no longer have the will to cope with their problems, that the future will be one of sacrifice and few opportunities. My fellow citizens, I utterly reject that view. We must go forth from here united, determined that what a great general said a few years ago is true. There is no substitute for victory. 3, 2, 1.
Further escalating tensions in the ongoing space race.
Violation of the International
Another
Space
Soviet
Treaty.
military satellite yesterday provoked a strong response.
I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Reagan administration announced that it was withdrawing the United States from the SALT
First test tube baby was born today in the United
se
States.
sont effondrés hier au Camp David, ce qui a soulevé le spectre d'une nouvelle guerre.
Roman Polanski was arrested at the Canadian border while trying to escape.
Brezhnev said the decision not to invade Afghanistan was part of a broader refocusing of resources in the ongoing space race.
The meltdown was prevented by technology first developed for Jamestown.
A nighttime raid by the U.S. military took the Iranians by surprise.
Leaders of the Polish Solidarity Trade Union were arrested in Gdansk today.
President Reagan refusing to bail out the Chrysler Corporation, calling the
U.S. hockey team failed to overcome the heavily favored.
In a surprisingly close race, President Reagan appears to have won a second term by defeating Senator
John Lennon
Livermore.
narrowly escaped death when a would-be assassin's bullet.
John Paul II was shot and killed today in St. Peter's Square.
Egipcio Anwar Sadat escapó un intento de asesinato.
Leonid Brezhnev, leader of the Soviet Union, has died. Yuri Andropov will become the next premier of the Soviet
Title, a
Union.
wedding gift from the Queen. Her Royal Highness Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, is welcomed by the crowd.
Announced that the first space shuttle will be named Enterprise in honor of the fictional starship in the television series Star Trek.
I began a quest for the presidency, a quest with many ideas, but with one driving theme, that our party and our nation need new leadership, new direction, and new hope. Tonight, the torch of idealism is lit in thousands of homes and tens of thousands of towns and hundreds of thousands of lives, among the young in spirit and the young in age. It cannot go out. It will not go out. It will continue to burn.
President Reagan and Premier Andropov signed a lunar peace treaty essentially dividing the
Congressional
moon in two.
report details how the lunar base's near meltdown was averted and how safe.
Famed U.S. astronaut hangout The Outpost has now opened franchises in New York, Los Angeles, Berlin, and Tokyo.
The host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
Margaret Thatcher a été tuée aujourd'hui lors d'un bombardement à Brighton.
Gorbachev's policies had the Soviet Union's economy in hyperdrive, expanding Soviet influence across
Major
the globe.
breakthrough in nuclear fusion. The reactor developed by Dev Ayesa and Richard Hilliard has the
Republican
potential
Ellen Wilson, a former astronaut, won her Texas Senate race
Baldwin
handily.
and Cleveland launched the world's first space tourism company, Polaris Space Tours.
Gebaut auf Land, gepachtet von
The Beatles reunion tour begins in Chicago, their first time performing in the U.S. since 1966.
Contract to mine massive deposits of helium-3 on the moon, an ideal resource for nuclear fusion.
The North Korean government announced they are abandoning their controversial ballistic missile program to focus on their space
President
program.
Hart won re-election in a landslide over Republican Pat Robertson.
Stakes in 1988 could not be higher. The choices could not be clearer. In right field, she is gone!
Hansen testified that global warming has slowed due to the widespread shift from fossil fuels to nuclear fusion.
After several listening devices were discovered in the American
The film
embassy.
Love in the Sky is based on the lives of Gordo and Tracy Stevens, premiered in
Hier in
Hollywood.
Ost-Berlin die Oktoberrevolution
The
gefeiert.
Thomas Paine Space Telescope will be launched into orbit aboard the Pathfinder
Astronaut
23
Danny
station.
Stevens, the son of Gordo and Tracy Stevens, has arrived at the Jamestown.
Polaris Space Tours has announced their latest venture.
We already sent folks up in space. We must give them no place to sleep.
Very hard has again declined to send troops to Kuwait after the small nation.
The United States is going to Mars. NASA unveiled the plans for the Sojourner
Questions
1
remain if
spacecraft.
the Soviets will also be able to launch in 1996.
Texas Senator Ellen Wilson has announced she is running for the Republican nomination for president.
South Carolina, here we come.
Clinton pledged a positive campaign focused on building a bridge to the 21st century.
We will give you more incentives and more opportunity than ever before to develop the skills of your workers and to create American jobs and American wealth in the new global space economy. As the scripture says, our eyes have not yet seen, nor our ears heard, nor our minds imagined what we can build.
The desire to go further has been a part of the American dream since the founding of our great nation. We saw the impossible, and we made it possible. But there are those few among us who would try to pull us backwards. They underestimated us, our resilience, our resolve, our desire to look up at the heavens and never look back.
After one of the most sensational come-from-behind victories by a presidential candidate.
The Mars 7 Alliance. The agreement aims to end the competition and distrust that is historically
Antitrust lawsuit brought by Exxon, Shell, and Halliburton. The company's plan.
President Wilson was sworn in, officially beginning her second term. The Republican president is the first openly gay person to hold the office.
CEO Richard Hilliard called their plasma propulsion technology a, quote, game changer, because missions will no longer have to wait for the so-called Mars window.
The survivors of the mission have safely made it back to Earth, stranded on Mars for over a year.
The first man on Mars greeted crowds celebrating his return. Lee spent months alone on Mars after his capsule crash landed on the Martian.
The first hotel has opened on the moon, available to the general public.
James Stevens testified against the defendants. Stevens struck a plea bargain agreement with prosecutors.
The ABC comedy Ellen has been renewed for a sixth.
Solicitó el divorcio de su
President
esposo.
Wilson signed the Marriage Inclusion Act, legalizing same-sex marriage, a very
The
personal
Race to Mars had its premiere tonight, starring Clint Eastwood as Ed Baldwin, Jada Pinkett as
Breakthroughs in fabrication on Mars will enable Happy Valley Base to manufacture aluminum from materials found on the Martian surface.
The successor to the Concorde, the aircraft is capable of reaching low Earth orbit and shortening
Stanley
travel.
Kubrick died today in England at the age of 70, known for
The autobiography written by CEO Eli Hobson describes how he saved Chrysler by leaning into the boom in electric vehicles.
El día 5 de la huelga de mineros en la luna Helios, sin perspectivas de
Y2K bug is wreaking havoc in Earth orbit today after clocks aboard the International Spaceport reset.
The question on everyone's mind is, will Vice President Bush be able to keep together the Wilson coalition?
In a tightly contested election, Al Gore has defeated George Bush to become the 42nd president of the United States.
L'ancienne présidente Ellen Wilson a épousé la professeure Pamela Horton lors d'une cérémonie.
Chaos reigns in Riyadh tonight after insurgents seized key government buildings in Saudi Arabia's capital.
The Osbournes and Moonlighters are leading the way for a new kind of television. It's being called reality TV, and it's dominating the nightly ratings.
And perestroika has transformed the once-dour Russian capital into a city of light and even
Горбачева Федор Корженко обвиняет его в предательстве коммунистических.
But the alliance between Gore and the Soviet leader shows no sign of slowing down.
As we usher in a new decade, the growing partnership between the United States and the Soviet Union, both on Earth and on Mars, is bringing a new sense of optimism to the nations of the world. Tonight, I can proudly say that the Cold War is over. Those we once thought of as our enemies have become our friends, and a new era of peace and prosperity is before us.